Ever feel like life's crushing you? Every criticism, every failure knocking you off balance? I've been there. Then I learned a simple secret. Act like nothing bothers you. Not pretending, but building real strength inside, standing tall through any storm. Want to know how I turn pressure into power, silence into a weapon, and live true to myself? It's easier than you think, and it'll change you forever. Listen till the end. I'll show you step by step how to own your life like I did. Don't miss it. I gained strength by detaching emotionally. I've come to wield an unshakable power, a fortress of my own making, by mastering the art of emotional detachment. It's not that I've numbed myself to the world's barbs or buried my heart beneath a stoic mask. No, it's a deliberate choice. A razor-sharp refusal to let the chaos beyond my skin dictate the rhythm within. Every cutting remark, every petty slight, every stumble that once sank its claws into me, I've learned they're nothing unless I grant them entry. Now, I stand as my own gatekeeper, deciding what breaches my walls, and it's a liberation that courses through me like wildfire, fierce and untamed. There was a time when I let it all seep in. Every whisper of doubt, every sideways glance, like a sponge swollen with the weight of others' judgments. I remember a day, years back, when a colleague's offhand sneer about my work sliced deeper than I'd care to admit. My chest tightened, my thoughts spiraled, and I spent hours replaying it, as if my worth hung on his careless words. That was me then. A puppet jerked by strings I didn't even see, handing my power to anyone who dared tug. But now, I've cut those threads. When someone hurls an insult my way, like last week, when a stranger mocked my pace in a crowded street, I meet it with a slow, deliberate smile, a quiet defiance that sends them reeling. They expect a flare of anger, a crack in my armor, but I give them nothing, and in that void, I reclaim everything. It's a lesson carved from watching the world's quiet titans, those who weather storms without a flinch. Think of a tree in a gale, roots deep, branches bending, but never breaking. That's the strength I've cultivated. I don't lash out when a plan crumbles or a friend betrays. Those moments used to unravel me, leaving me raw and restless. Now, I pause, a breath stretching into a fortress of calm. I've seen it in others too, like an old mentor who faced a room of skeptics with steady eyes and a single nod, turning their scorn into fuel. He didn't need to shout. His stillness roared louder than their noise. That's the alchemy I've mastered, transforming what once wounded me into a shield. This detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity, a lens that sharpens my gaze. When I refuse to let a stranger's venom or a sudden setback sink beneath my skin, I'm not just surviving, I'm rewriting the rules of the game. The energy I once squandered on overthinking, those endless loops of what if and why me, now fuels my steps forward. It's a thrill, this quiet rebellion, knowing I hold the reins to my soul. I don't bend to the whims of a cruel word or a fleeting failure. I rise above them, a phoenix unshackled. And in that rise, I've found a truth as old as time. The less I let the world rattle me, the more it bows to the power I've claimed as mine. This is my dominion, forged in the fire of letting go, and I'll never surrender it again. I choose what matters and let the rest slide. I've learned to wield a scalpel of choice, slicing through life's clamor to hold only what truly matters, letting the rest drift away like ash on the wind. It's not indifference born of apathy. No, it's a fierce clarity, a deliberate act of reclaiming my soul from the petty weights that once pinned me down. I used to clutch every fleeting annoyance, every snide remark, every minor hiccup as if they defined me. But now, I see them for what they are. Fleeting shadows, unworthy of my light. This shift has become my sanctuary, a quiet rebellion against a world that demands I care about everything, when really so little deserves my fire. There was a time when I drowned in the trivial. I remember a morning not so long ago when a spilled coffee and a stranger's scoff sent me spiraling. Hours lost to a storm of frustration over something I couldn't even recall by dusk. I was a prisoner then, shackled by my own need to fight every battle, to prove myself against every slight. But I've since asked myself, will this haunt me in 5 years? That question is my compass now. Most of what stings, the cutting critique from a coworker, the delay that derails my day, fades into dust with time. So why let it carve into me? I've chosen to let it slide, and in that release, I've found a freedom as vast as the sky. I think of a sculptor I once read about chiseling marble under a crowd's gaze. Some praised, some jeered, but he never faltered. His hands steady, his eyes locked on the stone. The taunts didn't sway him. They were noise, not truth. That's me now. I don't waste my breath on the hecklers of life, the small-minded jabs, the fleeting setbacks. My energy is finite, a flame I guard fiercely, and I pour it into what lasts. My dreams, my growth, my peace. When a friend's careless words stung last week, I didn't snap back or stew. I let them fall, weightless, and turn to the work that fuels me. That's my power. I decide what stays. This choice isn't weakness. It's a blade, honed and precise. I feel it in my chest, a swell of pride, a rush of defiance. As I walk past the chaos others drown in, they scramble to react, to fix, to care, while I stand apart, a lighthouse unshaken by the waves. It's not that I don't feel the sting, I do, but I've learned to cradle it briefly, then set it free. Like a bird, I've no need to cage. This is my strength, my quiet triumph. I save myself for the battles worth winning. And in that space where the trivial once roared, I've built a life that sings, of purpose, of calm, of a soul no longer tethered to what doesn't matter. I find freedom in releasing what I can't change. I've unlocked a wild, boundless freedom by letting go of what I can't bend to my will, a liberation that washes over me like a river breaking its banks. It's not surrender. It's a fierce unshackling, a refusal to let the unchangeable chain me to suffering. I used to grip every outcome with white-knuckled fists, jobs that slipped away, words I couldn't unsay, storms I couldn't still, believing my fight could rewrite fate. But that clinging only bruised me, a self-inflicted wound I nursed in the dark. Now, I've learned to release. And in that act, I found a peace so deep it hums beneath my skin. I think back to a night 2 years ago when a job I'd poured my soul into vanished, an offer yanked away after months of hope. I raged against it, replaying every move, every word, as if my fury could summon it back. Sleep fled, my chest burned, and I was a prisoner of what I couldn't control. That was me then, trapped by the illusion that my grip could force life's hand. But I see it differently now. Like a river flowing past boulders, I don't fight what stands immovable. That lost job, I let it drift downstream, and with it went the weight that crushed me. In its place, I found room to breathe, to turn toward what I could shape. This isn't resignation, it's power, raw and unyielding. I've watched the strongest souls I know, like my grandmother, face life's blows with a quiet grace. When her health faltered, she didn't curse the heavens. She smiled, tending her garden with hands that still could. She taught me that peace isn't in controlling the storm. It's in dancing with its chaos, letting it pass while I stand firm. I've taken that lesson into my bones. When a friend walked away last month, I didn't chase or beg. I released them, a leaf carried off by the wind. and kept my heart steady. What I can't hold, I no longer mourn. The freedom surges through me, a current of clarity and defiance. I'm not battered by what's beyond my reach anymore. I'm unshackled, a bird loosed from its cage. Every time I let go of a plan derailed, a betrayal I can't undo, I feel the chains snap, the air lighten. It's a choice that carves space for what I can build, my resolve, my next step, my quiet joy. I don't waste tears on the inevitable. I save them for what moves me forward. This release is my rebellion against a world that demands I suffer for what I can't change. I won't. I flow instead, like water around stone, untouched by what I can't command. And in that flow, I've found a strength that nothing, not loss, not failure, not fate, can steal from me. This is my emancipation, my soul set soaring by the courage to let go. I wield silence as my strength. I forged a quiet strength in silence. A blade so sharp, it cuts through the noise of the world without a sound. It's not a retreat or a weakness, it's my weapon. A deliberate choice to hold my tongue and let the stillness speak. Where I once spilled words to fill every gap, to counter every slight, I now wield the power of restraint. Silence has become my shield, my enigma, a force that shifts the ground beneath others while I stand unmoved. In its hush, I've discovered a dominion I never knew I could claim, a presence that roars without ever raising my voice. I recall a moment last year, a heated clash at work, someone's barbed critique aimed to unravel me in front of a room of eyes. My old self would have fired back, words tumbling out in a rush to defend, to prove. But that day, I paused. I let the silence stretch, thick and heavy, my gaze steady as they faltered. No retort, no flinch, just a calm that unsettled them more than any argument could. They expected a storm. I gave them a void. And in that void, I watched them stumble, their confidence fraying as I held mine intact. That's when I knew silence isn't passive. It's a thunderclap disguised as stillness. It's a craft I've honed, inspired by those who command without clamor. I think of a teacher I once had, a man of few words whose quiet pierced through chaos. When others ranted, he'd listen, nod, and wait, then speak once, words landing like stones in a still pond. The room leaned in, hanging on his sparse syllables. That's the power I chase now. When a friend snapped at me last week, I didn't bite back. I stayed silent, letting their words echo unanswered. They softened, unsure, while I stood taller, a mystery they couldn't crack. Silence turns the tables. It forces others to reveal while I conceal. The thrill of it pulses through me, a rush of control, a spark of defiance. I don't need to shout to be heard. My quiet unnerves, my restraint disarms. It's a game I've learned to play. In a negotiation, I pause after their offer, letting the tension build until they sweeten it themselves. In conflict, I hold back, watching their anger burn out against my calm. I'm not just surviving these moments, I'm mastering them, a strategist in a world of reactors. The less I say, the more they wonder, and in their wondering, I hold the reins. This silence is my fortress, my rebellion against a world that thrives on noise. I feel it deep, a swell of pride, a steady fire, as I move through life, a shadow they can't grasp. I don't need to prove myself with every breath. My strength lies in what I withhold. And in that withheld space, I've built a power that's mine alone, unspoken, unbreakable, and utterly alive. I build my mind to stay steady. I've come to understand that my greatest asset isn't my body or my circumstances, it's my mind. And I've made it my mission to temper it like steel in a relentless forge. I don't just want to survive life's blows, I want to stand tall through them, unshaken, with a clarity that cuts through the chaos. This isn't some idle wish. It's a discipline I've carved into my daily existence, a deliberate act of defiance against a world that loves to see us crumble. I've trained myself to face anything, to hold steady when the ground quakes, and it's become my armor, my quiet rebellion against weakness. Every morning, I rise with purpose, not just to face the day, but to conquer it. I push past the seductive pull of laziness, the voice that whispers, "Stay in bed, let it slide." Because I know that every time I resist, I grow stronger. It's not about grand heroics, it's the small, gritty choices. Getting up when I'd rather collapse, writing one more page when my thoughts blur, or stepping into the cold when warmth feels safer. These moments are my training ground, my battlefield where I sharpen my resolve. I picture myself in the eye of a storm, winds howling, debris flying, and there I am, calm, rooted, not a flicker of panic in my eyes. That's the man I'm building, one decision at a time. I think of the samurai, those warriors of old who didn't just wield swords, but wielded themselves. They trained not just to fight, but to think, to act with precision when others would flail. I'm no warrior in the literal sense, but I borrow their spirit. When life throws its ambushes, a deadline that suffocates, a betrayal that stings, a loss that hollows me out, I don't let my emotions hijack me. I breathe. I step back. I dissect the mess with a surgeon's steady hand. Last month, a friend turned his back on me, words sharp as knives, and my gut screamed to lash out, but I paused. I let the heat fade. Then I spoke, measured, firm, not a tremor in my voice. That's power. Not the loudest shout, but the steadiest stance. This mental fortress isn't built overnight. It's layered, brick by brutal brick. I've failed plenty. Snapped when I should have stayed silent, buckled when I could have stood, but each stumble teaches me. I replay those moments, not to wallow, but to study them like a tactician poring over a lost battle. What broke me? How do I weld that crack shut? I don't flinch from the ugly truths. I face them, because that's how I grow. The chaos of the world doesn't scare me anymore. It's fuel. I don't just endure it, I wield it. My mind is my weapon, honed and deliberate, and with it, I'm ready for anything. This is my strength. Not a gift I was given, but a fire I've stoked myself, burning bright against the dark. I define my worth, not others. I've come to a place where I no longer chase the applause of others. It's a liberation that feels like shedding chains I didn't even know I wore. For too long, I bent myself into shapes to fit their molds, craving a nod, a smile, a scrap of validation to tell me I was enough. But I've stopped that dance. Now I stand firm in my own skin, defining my value with my own hands, my own voice. My worth isn't a trophy handed out by someone else. It's a fire I tend myself. And that shift has set me free to walk my path with a boldness I never knew I had. I remember the days when I'd twist myself into knots for approval. A boss's curt, "good job," could lift me for weeks. A friend's silence could sink me into doubt. I was a puppet, strings tugged by every glance or word, my mood a mirror of their whims. But one day I snapped awake. I was tired of outsourcing my soul. I started small, finishing a task and feeling the quiet glow of pride. Not because someone praised it, but because I knew it was good. Like the time I spent hours sketching a design no one would see. I didn't need their eyes, mine were enough. That moment was a spark, and I've been fanning it ever since. Now I cheer my own victories, big and small. I don't wait for a crowd to clap. I'm my own audience, my own judge. When I push through a grueling day and still find the grit to smile, I mark it like a warrior notching a win on his blade. I think of a lone climber scaling a peak. No one at the summit to shake his hand, yet he stands there, chest heaving, knowing he's conquered something real. That's me now. unapologetic, needing no one's permission to feel tall. I've shed the weight of their expectations, and it's like stepping out of a fog into sharp, clear air. This isn't arrogance, it's clarity. I'm not blind to others' views, I just don't let them rule me. If someone offers wisdom, I'll weigh it, take what fits and leave the rest, but their scorn, their indifference, it slides off me like rain on glass. I recall a time when a stranger online tore into something I'd poured my heart into, words meant to wound. Old me would have spiraled, new me just shrugged. Their venom isn't my truth. I'm the architect of my value, building it from the ground up with every step I take, every choice I own. This is my freedom, a life where I answer to myself, bold and unbroken, my worth, a flame no one else can dim. I let criticism roll off me. I've learned to stand firm against the tide of others' words, letting their criticism wash over me without leaving a mark unless I choose to let it. I don't crumble under their judgments anymore. I've taken the reins, deciding what pierces me and what simply drifts away. It's not that I'm deaf to feedback, I just don't let every voice have power over me. I sift through what's thrown my way with a steady hand, keeping what sharpens me and discarding what's mere noise. This is my shield. I define my truth, and no one else gets to rewrite it. There was a time when criticism felt like a blade. Every harsh word cut deep, leaving me scrambling to patch up my confidence. I'd replay a snide comment from a coworker or a jab from a stranger until it echoed louder than my own thoughts. But I've grown since then. Now, I see those words for what they are, just sounds, opinions, not gospel. Take last week, someone dismissed a project I'd labored over, calling it amateur. Old me would have stewed in shame. Instead, I paused, waited, and asked myself, is there truth here? A sliver, maybe, something to tweak. The rest? I let it roll off, like a stone tumbling down a hill, forgotten by the time it hits the bottom. I think of it like panning for gold. When someone speaks, I dip into their words, swirling the silt to see if there's a nugget worth keeping. If it's from someone who's walked the path, like a mentor pointing out a flaw I can fix, I hold on to it, grateful for the clarity. But if it's just a bystander barking from the sidelines, some loudmouth with no skin in the game, that's gravel, not gold. I don't clutch it to my chest or let it weigh me down. I've got no time for empty noise. I'm too busy building something real. This shift isn't apathy, it's authority. I'm not hiding from critique, I'm mastering it. I recall a chef I once read about, tasting his own dish under a storm of complaints. Diners sneered, but he trusted his palate, adjusted only what rang true, and kept his fire alive. That's me now. I listen, I learn, but I don't bow. If you fling mud, I won't flinch. I'll wipe it off and keep walking, head high. My story isn't yours to edit, it's mine to write. Criticism can knock all at once, but I hold the door, letting in only what serves me. That's my power. A heart steady, a mind clear, and a soul that bends for no one's whim. I thrive under pressure by expecting it. I rise in the heat of pressure by embracing it. I've come to see pressure not as a weight to dread, but as a forge where I sharpen myself. It's where I shine brightest. I don't just endure the storm. I step into it, eyes wide open, expecting the chaos and ready to wield it. While others falter, I stand steady, turning tension into a stage where I prove what I'm made of. It's not luck or bravado. It's a deliberate choice to prepare, to breathe, and to transform every crushing moment into a chance to rise above. I used to shrink when the heat turned up, deadlines looming like guillotines, expectations piling like bricks on my chest. I'd stumble, panic clawing at my throat, convinced I'd crack. But I've rewritten that script. Now, I anticipate the squeeze. It's as predictable as thunder after lightning. I think of a captain steering through a squall. He doesn't curse the waves, he reads them, adjusts the sails, and cuts through. That's me in the thick of it. Last month, a work crisis hit, phones buzzing, voices sharp. Where others frayed, I took a breath, mapped the mess, and moved. Step by step, I turned a snarl into a solution, calm as stone. This isn't some innate gift. It's a muscle I've built. I train for the inevitable, picturing the worst not to fear it, but to master it. Every tight spot I've faced, missed buses, botched plans, sudden losses, has been a drill. I don't flinch anymore. I plan. When stress coils tight, I don't let it choke me. I unravel it. I recall a story of a firefighter surrounded by flames who didn't run but walked, deliberate, finding the clear path. That's my ethos. I don't bolt from the fire. I face it, think through it, and emerge stronger on the other side. Pressure's my proving ground now. Where others see a breakdown, I see a spotlight. I thrive because I expect the push. I lean into it, not away. It's not about being fearless, it's about being ready. When the world presses down, I don't buckle. I breathe deep, plot my move, and act. Like a diamond born under crush, I turn the strain into something unbreakable. This is my edge. I don't just survive the heat. I use it to burn brighter, to stand out, to show what I can do when the stakes climb high. Chaos doesn't own me. I own it. And in that mastery, I soar. I let my actions speak louder than words. I've come to realize that words are cheap. It's what I do that carves my name into the world. I don't need to trumpet my plans or parade my dreams. I move in quiet, letting my actions build something solid, something that speaks when I stay silent. My victories don't need a megaphone. They unfold in the shadows, steady and sure, until they stand tall enough to catch the light. This is how I mark my place, not with noise, but with the weight of what I create. I used to think I had to announce every step, tell the world my goals, fish for cheers before I'd even begun. But that's a hollow game. Now, I keep my cards close, working like a craftsman in a dim workshop. Take the project I finished last spring. Months of late nights, no fanfare, just me and the grind. I didn't post about it, didn't boast. When it was done, polished and real, people saw it, felt it, and that was enough. It's like planting a tree in silence. Years later, its shade tells the story, not my voice. This isn't about hiding, it's about power. A lion doesn't roar to prove it hunts, it stalks, strikes, and the kill speaks. I'm that way now. I pour my soul into the doing, not the saying. When I help someone, I don't broadcast it. When I chase a dream, I don't tease it. I chase it until it's mine. The result? A life that doesn't beg for attention but earns it, undeniable and deep. My actions are my voice, steady and loud in their mute way, echoing longer than any shout ever could. I've forged a life where my mind is my kingdom, unswayed by the clamor, unbowed by the weight. I don't scramble to drown out the noise, I tune it out, wielding silence as my sword and focus as my shield. Every ounce of my strength flows into what I can mold, what I can master, leaving the rest to fade like dust in the wind. Challenges don't loom over me anymore. They're steps I climb, each one lifting me higher. I've turned every tempest into a forge, every gust into fuel, crafting a version of myself that doesn't just endure but thrives. This is my triumph, a soul ruled by me alone, rising relentless, forged anew in every storm.